Hi everyone, it's me again, and this time I have another beginner guitar lesson for you, but this is going to be on major chords, and it's the 5 most important major chords you should be learning as a beginner before you try and progress to anything more difficult. And those 5 chords are your G major, your C major, your E major, your A major, and lastly your D major. Okay? I also have another video on the most important minor chords you should be learning as a beginner, so when you finish this make sure you go over and have a look at that video as well. I'll try and put a link in the description for you just so you can easily get onto that video. Right, let's start with the G major chord to begin with. Okay, so that should sound like this when you put it all together. To be able to do that, you want to put your first finger on the 2nd fret on the 2nd string. Okay, so that's on the A string on the 2nd fret. Now you're going to take your 2nd finger and you're going to put that on the 3rd fret on the low E, so that's the 1st string. Okay, and lastly, I want you to put your 3rd finger on the high E on the 3rd fret. Okay, and then I'm just going to get you to strum every single string together. And just to make sure that every single note is coming through as it should, I want you to try breaking up each note individually, because that way if there is a note missing you're going to be able to hear it, because sometimes when you strum a full chord it can kind of mask any mistakes that you've got. So if you're breaking that up you can see exactly where you're going right and where you're going wrong. Okay, so that's your G major chord and it should sound like this. Great. Right, the next one we're going to have a look at is your C major chord. Okay, and this is probably the most difficult one for a beginner just because of the stretching involved with your fingers. But we'll just go ahead and we'll give it a try, but just please keep in mind that this one's going to take a wee while to learn. So I want you to put your first finger on the 1st fret on the B string, so that's the 5th string on the 1st fret. Then you're going to take your 2nd finger and place that on the 2nd fret on the D string, so that's the 3rd string down. And now get your 3rd finger and place that on the 3rd fret on the A string, which is the 2nd string down. And with this chord you're only going to strum 5 strings. Okay, so you strum from the 2nd string on your guitar, or the A string, and it should sound like this. Okay? Right, now that you've got those, the most important thing to try is to change from one to another. Okay, and this is what we would call forming a chord progression. So I want you to try and go from a G major chord to a C major chord. And it doesn't matter if you're not really quick at this right now, because nobody when they're a beginner can do this a million miles per hour. Okay, so you just want to do that really slowly from one chord to another. Okay, right, our 3rd chord in this sequence is going to be the E major chord. And with your E major chord, I want you to put this 1st finger on the 1st fret on the G string, okay, or the 4th string down. You're then going to take your 2nd finger and place that on the 2nd fret on the A string, which is the 2nd string down. And then lastly, this 3rd finger is just going to tuck in underneath on the 2nd fret of the D string. Okay, so when you're ready and when you've done that, you're then going to try and strum all of those strings together. Okay, and you'll also notice that this chord is exactly the same shape to an A minor chord. Okay, so if you can do an A minor you can do this chord. Okay, because the only difference is you're just moving it down or up on the fretboard. So E major should sound like this. Right, now try and run through all 3 of those. So you should be trying to change from G to C to E major. Okay? Right, after that we're going to have a quick look at an A major chord. Okay, right, there are various ways of playing this. I play it this way because I've got quite small hands and I can fit my fingers all on the 2nd fret. Some people will change your 1st and 2nd fingers around. So if you're finding this way that I'm showing you a little bit too difficult, or your fingers don't fit on the frets, make sure you change your 1st finger and your 2nd finger around. Okay? Right, so let's get going with this one. So I want you to put first finger on the third string, or the D string, on the second fret. Your second finger is going to go on the second fret on the G, so that's the next string down, and then your third finger is going to go on the second fret on the next string down, which is the B string. Okay? And all of those are on the second fret, just one underneath another. And then with this one, you're going to strum from the second string on the guitar, so that's the A string. Okay, and it should sound like that. Right, now what you should do is you try and put all of those together. So you go from G to C to E to A. Okay? The last chord we're going to have a quick look at today is your D major chord. Okay? And your D major chord is another one that can be quite difficult for beginners, but we're going to go through it and we'll see how it sounds. So your first finger should be on the second fret on the G, and your second finger should be on the second fret on the high E. So that's your first finger on the second fret on the fourth string, and your second finger on the second fret on the high E string. Okay? Now I want you to take your third finger and put that on the third fret on the string in between those two. So you should have 2, 3 and 2. Okay? And with this one we're going to cut out the 2 strings at the top of the guitar and you're going to strum the other 4. Okay? So now the last thing to do would be to put all of those together. So G, C, E major, A major, and D. Okay? When I am saying chords, I'm alternating between saying G major or G. Both are correct, so don't think there's a right way and a wrong way of saying that. Just G, C, A is fine, because everybody will know that you're referring to the major chord. Okay, and the last thing to do would just be to put them all together, and then you can start having a look at rhythms. Okay, so to begin with, depends how far on you are, but what I would do is just try strumming 2 times on each chord. So if we take like 3 or 4 chords and just go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, and you can try that with any of the chords that we've learned over these 2 lessons. Just try and change between them. The only thing I would say is if you change from major to minor on the same note, so if I change from an A minor to an A major, it doesn't sound that great, so I would try and stick away from that if you can. But other than that, just make sure you practice all of these chords and you should have a good 9-10 chords to work with, and that's going to get you started on a lot of songs to begin with. So good luck with all of it, and I'll see you again for the next lesson.